Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hello, you guys. Oh my goodness. It's Kelly here, and I'm so glad that you press play because you are in for a treat today. I have Shouter of Worth, Heather Avis, on the podcast today. She is one of my visionary women spotlights, and I cannot wait to share this interview with you. Oh my gosh, you guys are going to love it. Before we get to that, I do want to talk about today's sponsor, which is Beautycounter. And this is the sponsor for this whole month, my month of sharing. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the month, that's my theme in February. And today I want to share with you one of my favorite things that I use every single day. And I know you might be getting tired of hearing me say this about Beautycounter products, but you can trust me that if I say to you that I use it every day, I totally use it every single day. And this one is super simple and it's super useful. It is the Peppermint Lip Conditioner. And you guys know I'm a musician, and my lips actually are very important because if they get chapped or if I have a crack in my lip, it's hard for me to play and I don't sound as good. So I really, especially during the winter, take really, really good care of my lips. And this Beautycounter lip conditioner has been just lip changing. It's been lip changing. That's what I'll say about it. I keep it right next to my toothbrush, and every single night, right after I brush my teeth, I just slather it on. And it's, when you put something on your lips, it's almost like you're eating it. And I never feel like I'm getting chemicals in my body or on my body. I always feel super safe. I know that every single ingredient in it is safe for me. And that not only is it safe, it's doing what it says it's supposed to be doing. So it leaves my lips super soft and ready to go every single day. And also it's very minty fresh. So I highly recommend you guys check out the lip conditioner in peppermint. I haven't tried the other flavor, which is calendula. I think that's how you say that. But I imagine that that's good too. So, and you can buy them in a set or you can buy them as singles, and it's really reasonably priced and it lasts a super long time. So check it out. You can go to my link at kellycovert.com/beauty. And that is what I'm sharing with you this week. So now on to Heather Avis. Let me tell you guys how I discovered Heather. I follow another account, which I love, on Instagram called Avis Tree. They make these beautiful hoodies and jackets and sweaters and things like that. And they did a partnership with Heather when she published her book, The Lucky Few. And I thought, I'll go check this out and see what it's about. Well, oh my Lord, I have fallen in love with Heather and her family. And I reached out to her and I was so excited when she said yes, that she was going to come be on the podcast. So let me read you her bio. Heather Avis is wife to her handsome and hardworking man, Josh, and mother to the adorable Macyn, Truly, and August Few, which is available everywhere books are sold. And I've read it. Actually, I listened to it. It's super good. After working as an educational specialist, she found herself as a full-time stay-at-home mom when she and her husband adopted their first daughter, Macyn, in 2008. Shortly thereafter, in 2011, they adopted their second daughter, Truly. And in 2013, their son August was born and came home to be theirs. Heather currently resides in Southern California, where between oatmeal making, diaper changing, and dance parties, she shares her heart by putting words on paper and using using her hit Instagram account, Macyn Makes My Day, to share the awesomeness of all things Down syndrome and adoption. She cares fiercely for the underdog and believes God's goodness and beauty are found in the most seemingly uncomfortable places. And we really dig into fear today. We talk about, instead of always looking for the easy answer, looking for the right answer, and how that is inside of you. And Heather really shares her heart with us about what it was like for her to adopt 3 children. 2 of them have Down syndrome. One of them is African American and Guatemalan, and how being the mother to these children who are not like her has been one of the best things of her life. And I really believe that Heather is a visionary woman. She's changing the conversation around what it means to be a person with Down syndrome, around what it means to be a mom of someone with Down syndrome, and around what it means to be an adoptive mother. So you guys are really, really going to love this interview. I think that there's something in it for everyone. So sit happy and excited to welcome and enjoy my conversation. Thank you so much for being here today, Avis.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm happy and excited to be here.
Yeah, so I shared in the intro with my audience your bio, but I wanted to really give you the opportunity to share a little bit more deeply your story of coming to be an advocate for people with Down syndrome.
Yeah, I think that advocacy, I like to call myself a shouter of worth.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
I think that people don't really look to be advocates. I've actually never really had this conversation or done any kind of studies on this. So I'm just saying this from my own experience. I don't think people normally look to be an advocate. I think advocacy finds you based on circumstances. So I think people who find themselves in a place of having to fight for value and worth step into roles of advocacy. And then some of us are made for it more than others. And that's kind of my story. I have 3 kids and they're all adopted, and all 3 of them find themselves on the fringes of society. And what I mean by that is my oldest and youngest have Down syndrome. And my middle daughter is African American and Guatemalan. And they're all 3 within a people group that has often been seen as less than or looked down upon or been treated unfairly solely based on how they look. And so I'm their mom, right? And I don't know how many moms are listening, but like, it doesn't take much for the mama bear in a mom to come out. And I just realized pretty quickly, but didn't necessarily stamp it as such, that I was going to be their number one advocate. And as the years have gone on, recognize that there's this role I've been placed in solely because my kids are who they are. But there's also a makeup about my personality and a God design with who I am that allows me to step into the role as advocate or shouter of worth in a way that is...
Wow, there's so much to unpack right there. I'm going to start with the shouter of worth, because my listeners know
awesome.
I
love
have the word worthy tattooed on my arm. I believe that everyone is worthy from the moment they are born, regardless of what they do or what they don't do. And I'd love for you to talk about how you've learned about worthiness from your kids.
Being a mom is such a wild, magical, sacred gig. And I think no matter who your kid is, as their mother, you see the worth and value in a way that just like consumes every ounce of your being. And so it's easy to say for a child who is, for lack of better phrases, neurotypical or, fits the common mold, or the child that I think most men and women hope for as they're growing a family. You don't even have to think of them as worthy because they just fall in that category. But when you have a child who is so different than the social norm, then you have to, society and pressures around you are saying like, this child is different, and oftentimes different equals unworthy. But then I'm their mom, right? And so for any moms listening, I would jump in front of a moving train for my child. I mean, you would do anything for your child. And that anyone would look at them as less than 100% human, totally worth life, incredible little people is absurd as a mom. So it's just like that mother instinct in terms of like shouting the worth of my kids. And it's just, and it is a bummer as a mom when you know that people don't see your children as worthy because they don't fit into that typical mold.
Totally. And that's something I can really relate to. My oldest son, my listeners know, is on the spectrum. And I feel that one of the things that I have learned from him is not only to see his value and worth, but also to recognize mine. And I wonder if that has changed your understanding of your own worthiness in parenting.
Dang, girl, I've
your
never
kids.
been asked that question. I've never thought about that. Let me think about this for a minute. That was quick. We're like 5 minutes in. Here we go.
Oh, we go deep here.
I guess what my kids have brought out in me maybe is just like a different way to look at this. I guess I've never had to really question my worth because in terms of society, I fit within the systems in place. And so if they've done anything for me, they've really opened my eyes and taken my blinders off to, it's not just my kids, but it's whole people groups that are not suffering is the wrong word, but that are having to shout a little bit louder about their worth based on who society says they are. And I don't fit into many of those. The only one I fit into is like being a woman. But I guess the way that they've helped me look at worth differently is I had taken advantage the fact that I sat in these places of privilege really easily and I didn't even recognize it. So I was seen as worthy just by being born as a white woman in a middle-class family in the United States, right? And does that make sense? Is this all making sense?
Oh my gosh, it totally makes sense. And I think given what's going on in our society today with race and female versus male, the sense that we're like against each other almost, sometimes it feels that way. I can really relate to that because I'm the same as you know, a white woman born to middle-class parents. You know, I'm smart, I'm gifted.
Yeah,
I've never had
like we've been born with people seeing us
a lot of people
with
have.
a kind of worth.
And I think that this conversation is a conversation that all white women should be having.
And my kids have shown me that because I'm smack dab in their world every day. And I now see that the world is not as friendly as I once had thought it was in my younger years, you know, because I had the privilege of being able to think that. So I'm thankful for them opening up my eyes to the systemic issues around us that are oppressing certain people, that are taking the worth away from certain people. And in being able to see that, I can then step more boldly into my role as advocate and shouter of worth, not for the voiceless, because all these people have voices, right? But more as an ally, using my privilege to step there and to go there. So I guess in that regard, I see my worth in that area. I'm going to think about this question some more too.
Right. Okay, we could circle back around to it. I wanted to talk about something else that you mentioned, that most people don't seek out being an advocate, that it finds them, and that you definitely feel that it found you. And because of who you are, it was something that blossomed for you, really. And so my question is, going back before you had your kids,
I do. I can look back and see.
Do you think that there was really some sort of through line or direction that was always taking you to this place
really
where you
caring
are now?
About people who, like an underdog, and being really heartbroken by homelessness. I just have these really vivid memories of being in San Francisco for the first time, and the burden, and I think I was 8, and the burden I felt by seeing so many homeless people, because I grew up in a very small neighborhood up in a mountain community, and there were not homeless people, at least not visible where we lived at all. And seeing that and like holding that burden of, oh my gosh, there are whole people just like suffering. What's happening? And in my 8-year-old naive mind, I could think, well, why? Like, let's fix this. Everyone just give everyone money and everyone is taken care of, right? Like those simple solutions. So there was that. I remember hearing about, for whatever reason, when I was real little, my parents said I would pray for the starving people in Ethiopia. And they're like, where did she get this? Like, we never studied Ethiopia. So there was always this track in my life and in my heart towards the people towards an underdog. Yeah, even when I was real little, I remember at school, like if I ever saw someone left out or hurting, or I just couldn't even stand it. I couldn't stand the thought of somebody not being included and not being cared for.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important to point that out because as women, as grown women, stepping into our vision and stepping into our passion, I think sometimes we feel like it has to have been something that was obvious. But when we start to look back, I think that you can really sort of see a through line in all of the things that we have loved, in all of the things that have drawn us to them. And I really like that you shared that, because sometimes I think women start to feel lost. They're like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't even know. I
totally agree with that. And I think personality too. Like I'm a pretty opinionated person. My friends always joke that you never have to guess what Heather's thinking.
Child really can sort of help bring clarity.
I just am like
around
so
your role,
transparent to a fault. Like here I am, and I wish and expect transparency from others. And looking back in my early years, like teenager and 20s, I definitely came across as opinionated. Like I knew everything and I was right. And that's all been refined in me as I've grown up. And in my 30s, I always say like, I know nothing, but I still have strong opinions. And I think that personality trait is something that was innate in me from the beginning, because I was going to need that to step into my role as an advocate for my kids and as an advocate for people with different abilities. And so even like looking at a personality trait that maybe I thought in my 20s was a negative thing, it's like, no, let's refine this and use these traits that already exist in us as women and as people to step into a role that's sitting, waiting for us to step into. It's just, I think that there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of things for Kelly, like comparison, right? I think that with social media being playing a huge role in most people's lives these days, I think that I have known women too, and I've been guilty of this, to sit around and think, well, these women are doing this big thing, and then feeling the pressure to do that big thing. Like, well, I need to do something bigger and greater because everyone around me is doing something bigger and greater, which isn't true, but that's kind of what social media shows you. Right. And it's like, no. The work you're doing in your circle of your sphere of influence is sacred and powerful and important. Yeah. And no one needs to know about it for it to be important. It's important because it's the work that you're supposed to be doing.
Yes. Thank you so much for saying that. I like to say, when you change your world, you change the world. Because it could just be one person. It could be just, and I shouldn't even say just. It could be your family. It could be your friends. It could be your mom, your sister, your brother. But when you change your world, when you change your perspective, when you start to step out in your worth, that is world changing. And so let's talk about you when you made the decision to adopt your first daughter, Macyn. Some might have called that a crazy decision because here you are, you tried to have kids naturally, and that was not something
girl,
that
I
was going to be
terrified
possible
the entire
for you.
time.
And you were hoping to adopt a
it was
healthy
a one
child,
day
and then
at
you
a
have this
time, one moment
opportunity
at a
to
time.
adopt
And
a baby
my husband and I
who
felt pretty
needed open
crazy
heart
in it.
surgery, who has Down
We
syndrome.
knew that
and
we could say
you
no
said yes.
and we could wait for that healthy baby
How
we've been
did you
waiting
get
for.
to that point?
It
of
really
being
was like
brave
a gut
enough
and a heart
to
thing
be
that
able
we
to
were
do
trusting
that?
our gut and our heart over our mind. And so we were stepping, it was one step at a time. I think some of the craziest, bravest places that we are called to step towards, we see it in the horizon and we think, okay, I need to take 20 steps to get there, or 100, whatever. Like we're leaping to that place and it's overwhelming and it's terrifying. And so then we just freeze and give up. Where a lot of the brave things required of us, it's just one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. And when we were pursuing our adoption of our daughter, Macyn, it was that we didn't know what 2 steps ahead looked like. We literally knew, okay, we're not saying no. So we're picking our foot up. We'll see where it lands. And when we started thinking way in advance, like ahead of ourselves more than a step, it did become overwhelming and it did feel paralyzing. And we'd have to like back up and realize, okay, here we are. We're going to take one step at a time, one step at a time. And then eventually each step leads you to where you need to be. And where we needed to be was with our daughter, Macyn. And once we got there, because we didn't allow the fear to paralyze us, we just kept taking those tiny little steps. We realized, well, this is the greatest decision we've ever made. But it wasn't a yes, and we were done. It was one foot in front of the other, in front of the other, until we got to that yes. 1,000 tiny yeses. And then there were probably 900 no's. And then,
It was 1,000 yeses.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that is true of anything, like of anything that is scary and big. And for you guys that are listening, that could be leaving your corporate job to start your own business.
So much.
It
That
could
is
be
such a good
starting
point.
a nonprofit.
And that proved itself in
starting a
our
new
next
relationship
adoptions with our middle daughter, Truly, and our youngest
whatever
son,
that looks
August,
like.
because
it feels
we had
so
seen,
huge.
we had
but just like
done that
one
hard work in the
step
beginning
at a
with
time,
Macy.
one
And then
step
when
at
it
a
came
time.
time
And
to do
I
it
think
again,
too, when
it was
you're doing
so
that,
much easier.
every step
Because
also
we had that built
builds
up
your
in us.
courage more.
And
by the time you get to the place where you're like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do
we
this,
could go into the next
then
one, trusting
it's
that process.
intact at that point,
Because
don't
it
you
had
think?
worked well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. I just love that so much because it's so practical. You know, sometimes when we talk about listening to our gut,
and the physical feeling was more like a heart feeling, like seriously a tugging on my heart, and I don't know how to explain it physically.
That's how we should
but
be.
There definitely was.
We should be listening to our inner voice.
It was all of the feelings. It was like mental, emotional, physical. Scary. As we pursued,
and it can be so crazy
or
sometimes.
tried to avoid
who am I
pursuing this adoption of our
to
eldest,
make this decision.
But
then you just tap in.
I mean,
so
it was a lot of like
your
typical,
you just
butterflies, sick stomach.
Did
like
that
I say in my book, I think not butterflies. It was like fire ants marching around my stomach. I just was sick all the time, thinking about what would or wouldn't be. It all felt overwhelming. But the thing that we kept going back to is no was not the answer. And so because we couldn't firmly say no, it just looked like, okay, we can't say no. Instead of saying yes. Does that make sense? Yes. Yes. I am very pragmatic. And so that voice was extremely loud in my ear. And for me, it looked
makes
like
sense.
for
What
really
did you
big
do
decisions,
about the
not even really
voice
big decisions, but it was conversations
in your head?
So I'm
that voice that says,
too. So if
what
that's
are
not
you
your
doing?
personality type, then maybe
This
it's writing
is
notes
insane,
or journaling.
And that's also the voice I think that can,
my husband
even
and I
when
were,
it's small
we
decisions
are
like
people of faith,
stepping
so we were
out
very
in a
prayerful,
new outfit,
but we were
which
also
seems
together
like not a big
dialoguing
deal,
back and forth, and then there's a handful of people in our life who are really trusted people who know us very well.
What did you do about that voice?
And so it was conversations with them. It was saying, hey, this is what's before us. Can you just process with us? Not give us an answer, but process this with us. And it was people who we knew weren't going to say yes or no. They were going to ask us the right questions to help us be able to make the decision. So I think that knowing who those people are in your life that you can trust, or that person, and you just need one, who you can trust to have that dialogue with. And that was like real pragmatic for me. And then I did Google searches and all those kinds of things, which I actually don't think are helpful in a lot of big decision making. At least not if you're adopting a medically fragile child. I don't recommend Googling medical issues. Let's just say that. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. I love this about having people that you can sit down and talk with who really know you and who you trust. And I remember someone else that I interviewed on In Her Voice, Megan Hale. This was a while ago. I'll look up the episode and link to it in the show notes for you guys. But she talked about how sometimes you need that reflection. Yeah. So when you speak out and even if you are asking a question to someone, when they give you the answer,
it's so true. I love that.
It's merely
a reflection of what you already know, because that was the case with every conversation
and
we had.
I really like that because I think sometimes
we knew that we were going to adopt this little girl,
when we talk about listening to your inner voice and
we didn't have one conversation with a person who was like, "This is a terrible idea.
Feels like you have to do it all on your own.
This is so foolish."
And
no one flat out said, "Do it."
Especially the older I get,
which
the
was
more
really helpful
I
and
value.
But no one was like, "Yeah, this is the right thing to do." It was just
that I know I
they were
can
reflecting back on what we already
into.
knew, and then I was also asking people, and this probably isn't a healthy
supports us, and that's
thing,
not.
But maybe I was asking people who I was hoping in that moment would say to us, "Oh no, you don't have to do this." Right? Like looking for the answers I was looking for were the easy answers, but not the right answer. And so I was thankful that people knew us well enough and could reflect us well enough that they were going to give us the right answer, not the easy answer. And I think we all know who those people are, right? We know the people we can go to who are going to be like, "Oh yeah, you're right. That's, don't do this or do this." Give us the easy answer. And we know the people who are going to give us the right answer. And we just have to know who we're going to talk to when we're trying to process through a decision.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I do. I really do. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So once you adopted Macyn and Truly in August, who, by the way, I am like so in love with, that kid.
What are we supposed to do about August?
What?
What are we supposed to do about August? He's like so incredible.
I don't even know.
He's awesome.
Because, you guys, you got to go follow Heather's Instagram. It's Macyn Makes My Day. And like, I just watch him. Like sometimes I'll watch the videos like 2 or 3 times because he makes me smile so hard that kid and you can just feel all of the love flowing out of him. There is something special, something so special. But once you were in this place where the advocacy found you, you realized your role as a shouter of worth. Then there's different kinds of resistance that we're up against, because now you can sort of recognize like this is bigger than just me. This is bigger than me having a family. This is my God-given role here. Did you ever bump up against that in a way where you're like, no, I don't want to do this?
I think advocacy work is so hard, and I'm in that right now, actually. Not that I don't want to, but I do. No, I do have feelings of like, why am I doing this? This is too hard. Because when you're dealing, I think, at least in the roles I'm in, when you're advocating for someone for an other person, so I'm not advocating for myself. I'm not advocating for white women. I'm not advocating for like middle children, right? I'm advocating for people who aren't my identity.
Right.
And I think that's a really tricky thing because, again, these aren't voiceless people. These are people who can advocate for themselves. I think within the disability community, there is a small percentage who can't. But the majority, we just don't know how to hear their voices, but they have voices that can be heard if we would listen. And within the race issue, right? People are advocating for themselves. And so I bump up against often trying to navigate that is really hard. And I make mistakes and I say the wrong thing and I hurt whole people groups or I offend people who I love. And then I have to like revisit where I'm coming from and it can feel exhausting and I'll have moments of like, well, I'm not doing this anymore. Because there's so many opinions and there's so many different perspectives and there's so many different experiences and there's so many different layers that it can be very overwhelming. Yeah.
So what keeps you going?
I really have committed to taking on posture of listener and learner. And I think that that's what is my saving grace. Is recognizing my role, like being able to say the people who I'm advocating for know more about this than I'll ever know. And so when they're telling me, hey, this is offensive or hey, this doesn't make sense, instead of getting prideful and arrogant, I've committed to being a listener and a learner. And I mean, the reality is I really believe all worthy work is really hard work. And I'm choosing to do worthy work instead of easy work. And it's not that for people who are choosing easy work, that's fine, right? You do you. But this is, I'm doing it for my kids. At the end of the day, I'm doing it for my kids.
Yeah. And so that's your why to really keep going.
Yeah. I mean, my why is Macyn Truly August. That is my why.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and I think what is interesting about what you say is despite the fact that it's hard, despite the fact that you make mistakes and that you sometimes say the wrong thing, that is not keeping you from going forward. And to me, that is courage. That is bravery. And when we can all start to recognize, I can say nothing.
Yeah. It really is. You just have to have a posture of humility
that
when you're doing that.
It.
You know, like I think the bravest thing is to humbly say something. I think as soon as you become prideful, it's like, that's where the battle is, you know? Like that's where the fight is when we let our pride get in the way. Oh my gosh, I'm a mom.
So how do you
like, let's see, it starts at 6 o'clock in the morning every single day. No, I am saying that lightly, but it's just true. Like my kids keep me humble
every
all
single
day long. I've got nothing, girl. Like I have nothing to be prideful about.
So true.
It's like we are just doing the best we can with what we've got, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel that that was one of my greatest lessons learned from having children.
It's
is
so
that,
true. And I feel like,
I
even
used to
in
think
my
I knew
advocacy
so
role,
much.
because you have a pretty heavy presence on
and
social
really,
media. And,
not so
this
much.
is what I do full time in different capacities. And if I'm starting to be like, oh, I got, like, look at this thing that happened, and I'm thinking that's like a little voice in the back of my head, and then someone like calls me out on a mistake, or like, it's like, I think you should view this perspective instead. It's like, oh, you're right. And that was good timing to hear that.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Totally. Well, Heather, gosh, I feel like I could talk to you for days and days. I do have a question for you that I think my listeners would be really interested in. And
I know. And
given that
called
you
it as we were
are
getting
the
it out
mom
a
of
toddler
3
bed,
young kids,
so he
I
will
think
not
that
call it anything else. So we'll be
August,
like,
I think I saw a
"Where's your
post
big
that
boy
August
bed?"
just got in his
it's a
big
toddler
boy
bed.
bed.
He just says toddler bed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, understanding that your hands are very full right now, do you have any
this is really a weakness
practices
for me. I'm really
that
bad
are
at
just
this,
for you
and
that
I
really
don't
help you connect
have
with your inner voice and
daily
help you
things.
find that
I go in
place
waves,
of truth inside of
and
you every
I think
day?
my daily thing is giving myself grace for that. Because I'll be really committed to like 5:30 workouts, and I'll do that for 6 weeks, and then I won't do it again for however long that I want to.
That's a huge practice.
Or things will shift, or someone's sick, and then I just get out of my rhythm. My kid right now, it's very seasonal, so I don't have a good answer for your listeners. I'm sorry about that, but like. Yeah.
But you know what? I think that's
really
the
true.
best answer, because sometimes we get caught up in, I should be doing this. It needs to look this way.
Yeah, it's so true.
Like you
right
said,
now I'm writing another book,
daily
and so
practice is giving yourself grace.
I'm just
It's
in like
not
work mode, so there's just
beating
not a lot of
yourself up
capacity
because
for those
it's
practices.
not looking
Something I
like
do
the way that you want it to,
that
or the way
I
you think it
do
should.
at least, I'd say once a week, and maybe once every 2 weeks, is I have my closest girlfriends and I get together with them, and that is life-giving for me, and that is where I do find my voice in a lot of ways, when I'm just sitting around a table having a glass of wine, catching up, talking about important things or not. Like, I need that girlfriend time, is so important to me. And I'm pretty consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, lots of places. So on Instagram and
I'm
Twitter, we are Macy Makes My Day, MACY.
So why don't you let my listeners know where they can connect with you on social media and find your book and all of that good stuff?
In March, right? It's called The Lucky Few Podcast. So that can be found on all social media at The Lucky Few Pod.
Oh, awesome. Yay. Excellent. And I listened to The Lucky Few, which I highly recommend. And I have to say, while I was listening to it, I cried. There were moments where I cried. Like, I felt so deeply those feelings that you were sharing. And I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for the work that you are doing in this world, because it matters and it's important. And thank you for being so brave.
My
you're
life
so
right
welcome.
Now, my inner
so
voice
I always end with one
me,
final question for all my guests.
And that is, forward.
In your life right now, what is your inner voice saying to you? Yes. That's good.
Great.
I can feel like you're listening to that too. So Heather, thank you so much. And hopefully I can give you a hug in person when you're here in Syracuse. I highly recommend you guys go check out her book, The Lucky Few. I keep doing listened to it, like I said, and it was really moving. And as a mom of someone with special needs, not Down syndrome, but on the spectrum, I really identified with a lot of what she was talking about. But I think even if that's not you, there's so much there to learn from about what is, about what beauty is, about what it means to listen to what your heart is asking you to do. And sometimes that's the hardest thing that we will ever do in our life, but guaranteed it will be the best thing that you ever do in your life. Totally 100% guaranteed on that. So definitely check out the book, connect with Heather on Instagram, and let me know what you loved about this episode. I'm really loving this Visionary Spotlight series because it's just so inspiring. I feel like we learn something new every single time we talk to someone about what it means to be a visionary and how they're doing that in their own life. So remember that February is all about sharing. So if you want to join me in sharing, share this episode with someone you know who would really love it. You can tag them in on Instagram. You can share my Facebook post or just shoot them an email with the link. And I know that they will really get a lot out of it. And don't forget that I'm sharing Beauty Counter with you guys this month, along with all of these amazing podcast interviews and my solo shows. It's all about sharing this month. So if you want to check out Beauty Counter products, especially the lip conditioner, which I shared earlier, go to kellycovert.com/beauty. Or you can just click the link right in your podcast app and it will take you there and you can check that out. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, ideas, feedback for me for the show, you can email me at kelly@kellycovert.com or you can send me a message on Instagram at Kelly J. Covert. So I cannot wait to connect with you guys. Remember that you matter. When you show up in this world doing that thing that you are best at, it's like what Heather said, maybe it seems like not a great quality when you're young, but as you refine it, it becomes the thing that makes you you. When you are doing that, you are serving your purpose in this world. You are showing up. You are changing the world. You are worthy.